Today's lecture is going to be on corals. Corals are pretty critical to our ocean because they're about 28% of our ocean is really habitable, and the corals are pretty critical. And if you've been reading the news recently, the last 4 or 5 years, they've had trouble with color bleaching. So, and that is destroying it's hurting the corals, and they don't always recover. You just have a kill off, and you know the fish. You lose a lot of habitat out there. And I'm on Facebook now, and I'm also on Twitter, and I discuss that in more detail as to what they could probably do, what they could do about it. Actually building structures out there. Also, there's you can create some kind of government program to domesticate more fish. You have a kind of a growing aquarium industry out there. It's about 4% out there what they service out there, but it's mostly in restaurants and maybe some institutions like a museum or something like that. But that could be expanded on so that you have more of that out there, and especially when we have bleaching. The bleaching is caused by the raising of temperatures of the ocean due to global warming. And if we lose all our coral, we lose a good portion of our marine life, because that's all they have to live on. But the interesting thing about coral, especially when you talk about design, is that there's zooanthia, which is an algae that grows within the coral. You see that little green stuff growing within the coral. And it's very similar, the role that the zooanthia have with coral is it creates a cycle. And the cycle is similar to our digestive system. And the same process, which shows you that there's a common creator in the coral and that process in us. So here's a good example of intelligent design as far as alien life forms go and stuff in the ocean. And designing that system it's pretty obvious. But we have enzymes and probiotics and stuff, and stuff that helps our digestive system that isn't native to our digestive system, that helps our digestion. And then that's the same role as the algae have, the zooanthia have with and algae have with the coral. What it basically does, it processes sunlight, photosynthesis, and it produces sugar, which the coral feed on. So you got an energy source, and it produces sugar, and the coral metabolize that, and that fuel the algae also benefit from. So there's kind of a cycle in that process, and you'll find that a cycle throughout all life on the planet Earth, and it gives you clues as to what that cycle is. If we go through it from an engineering perspective, I go back to the demi management system, which I done recently a lecture on, just briefly. But in their design cycle, there's a planning stage. You plan the community of the coral. You plan what that coral needs to survive on stuff. There's a do stage. You put the coral out there maybe in a lab situation. You study it, then you evaluate and you continue the cycle and you see if you can make improvements on it. And it's just continuous cycle until you've reached the goal of creating a life form that can survive out there in the ocean. And it's a continuous cycle in engineering, and Deming's wheel represents that. And you see that throughout all life out there in the ocean. You see it with us, you see it with reptiles and amphibians and stuff, in a design process that has its origins in alien engineering a long time ago. So keep that in mind when you're if you're watching Blue Planet, you're looking at all the beautiful features of the ocean and stuff, that there's a design process, an evaluation, there's a planning stage, and all that in creating those life forms. The Seahorse is kind of unusual because he has an alien feature that is very different from most of the other life forms. Is that the male can carry eggs. He has a sac, similar to kangaroo. And so that gives you clues that the designer has both those traits. One of them is a land-based animal, and another is a fish, basically. But it also looks like a horse. So you see these relationships between those two life forms, kangaroos and horses, and you see that there's you can't find it. Darwin tried to find a linkage between those two worlds, and they could not find it because the designer is actually making improvement. He's taking Deming's cycle, and he's actually making improvements on something that he created in the ocean, and he adapts it to land, and he makes it on, and then he or she does creates a life form out there, has a unique trait, and if those male seahorses have the ability to carry eggs like a female, and they can reproduce. It isn't just the female. So this is an advantage because the male and the female can both incubate eggs. It's not just a female's role. And so in the process of creating more life, this has an advantage. So it's an alien advantage over our reproductive cycle, which only a female can carry life. So is that an alien out there in the universe? I don't know, but it is an alien trait that does have some unique advantages. Next thing is anemones. Anemones are like your salamanders. They have a unique alien feature. They have the ability to grow new limbs. And also in this picture you see the trilobite, or crab. The trilobite is one of the oldest fossils we have in early life out there in the sea. It's basically a pool sleep. It looks similar to a cockroach. You look at the traits of the trilobite and a cockroach, and you see the function of the trilobite is it basically acts as a pool sleep in early ocean, just like we have out there in a pool in our out here in your backyard. But it has a system that was designed specifically with that purpose to clean the bottom of the ocean. So it is kind of unique to the ocean. Another thing is spawning. Coral spawn 3 days after a full moon. And there's been something recently I popped up on the internet that they've got these round stars, like huge round objects that disappear, pop up, and they pick them up on telescopes, and then they disappear. And they're big as stars, and they can't explain what they are. And I would suspect that there probably is some kind of ship. As what that ship is doing, well, there's clues in our ocean, in life out there as far as the ocean goes and everything else. So the possibility that the aliens do leave us clues when they create life. And what the possibility of what that might be doing is that they may just bring a huge ship out there to a new planet, and they're actually basically colonizing the planet. Another possibility that I've suggested in some of my videos is that they're using the fuse rock together, because a round ship like that has the ability to store a lot of energy, which can be used for that. So this process in coral, when they spawn, and it's the same, they just spew it out there in the ocean, and the sperm and the eggs mix out there in the open ocean, which is the same process that we reproduce, but we do it in more of an enclosed environment. But then those traits are very similar. And the evolutionists try to say, well, we all start out in the ocean, but it gives you clues as to who the creator was, is that there's traits of that process that are very similar to us. So it gives you a common creator that's just like us. So I think in those kind of terms, instead of a Darwinist perspective of how that originated from. Another unique lizard out there is a sea iguana, and he's like the Komodo dragon. He's part of the Galapagos Islands, and there's a lot of native species there that aren't around the rest of the world. And the sea iguana is one of them. He dives out in the ocean. He eats algae, so it probably helps his digestive system, or it's just. Basically, it's not like he's very close looking to the regular iguanas that you have out there in the desert, but he was adapted, designed to actually survive close to the ocean. So he has his own little domain out there on the shore where he's got food out there in the ocean. But he's also very similar to the Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon does have the ability to swim, but he's only unique to one island, and that's the same thing with these sea iguanas. They're close. You only find them out there close to the Galapagos Islands. So here again, it's a unique trait, and they can't really explain why they're only part of that local community. So do they have an extraterrestrial origin? I would suggest they do, and that they were put out there. There's really no other explanation how they got out there, because they're not anywhere else in the world. But the Japanese have done a lot of study of Komodo dragons, and he's only on one island. But they did discover that he does have the ability to swim, like these sea iguanas. Anemone fish. Anemone fish have an alien trait. They have the ability to spread mucus on their skin, which desensitizes the anemone to actually strike at them. So it's actually a kind of a cloaking device. So if you're looking at advanced alien technology out there, remember in Star Trek where the Klingon warship had the ability to disappear. And total invisibility, there was something in Scientific America, or was it Popular Mechanics, where a lot of engineers think the possibility that in the future they will have total invisibility. So the creator of these anemone fish, with advanced science and stuff, give you the clues that that's a characteristic of advanced civilization, is that they actually can cloak. So it gives you clues as who the designer of these anemone fish were. The blue line octopus is another one. And the blue line octopus has a deadly nerve toxin that actually blocks the nerves, which causes temporary paralysis. It's caused by symbiotic bacteria that's produced in their digestive system. They actually spew it out. If you remember the movie Alien, somebody was fighting Alien, and Alien has the ability to open his mouth up and spew toxic stuff, chemical at you. Out in the wild, there are some creatures out in the ocean that can't actually do that. So is that an alien out there in the galaxy? Well, it would be a very deadly alien because you'd be fighting with him, and all of a sudden he can just open his mouth up and wipe you out. So I mean, there are fish and animals and reptiles and stuff that do have the ability to do that out there in the wild, but nothing with any kind of form of higher intelligence. This is a neat little alien creature. It's called a Mantis Shrimp. And what's interesting about the Mantis Shrimp is he has 12 color receptors, and we only have about 4 that can see in full wavelength. So his advantage, his eyesight can read 12 different wavelengths where we can only see, I think, 4. So here again, if you're talking that from a Darwinist perspective, survival of the fittest, well, this Mantis Shrimp has an advantage, especially out there in the ocean. So you have to think in terms of alien features, his eyesight is superior to ours is in interpreting color. Just because there's nothing intelligent out there that walks upright right now that can do that, doesn't mean that that's not an alien species somewhere out there in the universe or out there in the galaxy that does have that type of eyesight. He or she would have an advantage over us. So that's what I'm kind of looking through when I go through books on reptiles and amphibians and mammals and stuff. Is I'm looking for alien traits that might possibly be out there, which is the study of biology. So that pretty much sums up this lecture for this evening.